The journey of the entrepreneur is a profound and wonderful journey.
I didn't want to work for anyone else. I wanted to work for myself.
Hi, I'm Mike Caslin, your host for Veterans Playbook. I'm hearing a lot of assets from your military experience.
I initially started Battlefish to help other veterans, to help other people.
It's battle fishing good.
This is a series about veteran entrepreneurs driven by their passion and purpose to create peace and prosperity for themselves and their community.
We just grew 20% in the last probably 3 months.
You've been heroes, national security heroes.
I've been mortared, I've been shot at.
Now it's time for you to become economic heroes. We're going to be using the Entrepreneur's Playbook, written by Professor Len Green, member of the Babson Business Hall of Fame, philanthropist, author, and serial entrepreneur.
Find a problem out there, solve it.
We want to ignite your passion and your social entrepreneur within.
Everywhere I went, you could never find this style of pizza anywhere.
Most people see an abandoned building as just waste. We see it as an opportunity.
I'm Mike Caslin. Welcome to Veterans Playbook. We're thrilled to be with Sean Moore and the Dole Foundation today. Sean, thank you so much for being with us, and would love to hear your journey.
I happened to meet my husband while he was being medically discharged. My husband is an Army veteran. He spent 23 years in the Army, and he completed 7 tours to Afghanistan. He got into the military when he was 18 years old. Wanted to leave home. When Brian and I met, I was a police officer for Kansas City, Missouri. Had been in my career about 6-7 years at that time. My family was 4 kids. I was single for 12 years. I can remember our first date when he said, I have PTSD, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I live with my parents. And I said, sign me up.
I don't believe he realized how significant the PTSD and the depression was. I was trying to talk him through a flashback that it was way more intense than he realized. Within 6 weeks of us meeting, I realized that there was something more there in what I was doing in our relationship. That brings a whole different dynamic to a loving, close relationship, because a caregiver has to step in. We're telling them, our loved one, to do things that oftentimes it's like them we're their mom.
It wasn't conducive to being a police officer. If I was on a scene and he called and said, hey, I need you home, it just wasn't conducive. So I started thinking about, okay, what's the shift going to be? Because I am not one to stay at home. I was too young to not have a career. I wanted a career. So I went back to school. And the week before I was supposed to start, my husband attempted suicide. And on that day, I can remember going, how in the world am I going to start back to school on Monday?
If I hadn't gotten involved with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, if I hadn't met other caregivers that I can immediately call or text and say, this is what's going on, my journey would be that much more of a struggle.
The same year, all this is happening, suicide attempt, thinking about leaving the police department, going back to school. I also became a Dole Caregiver Fellow for the state of Missouri, which was wonderful for me.
What was wonderful, if you can think back?
Timing, again, after a first suicide attempt, only 2 months later did I come out to DC and was around so many other caregivers of veterans who got me, who understood when I first told about the suicide attempt. There were no questions, there was no judgment. They got me. I fit in. I was leaving a tribe, right? Just like the military, first responder life is a lot like that. Those are your people that have your back day in and day out, knowing that they may be the ones that save your life, or you may be the one saving their lives. So when you leave that, just like our veterans, they're missing that. I miss that. I ended up leaving the police department in 2019, and thankfully I had already met those other caregivers and got involved with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. So I felt seen and heard, as well as empowered.
Yes.
I mean, Senator Dole, what a mentor she is, empowered to go down a different journey than what I had when I first met my husband.
A lot of times when people hear the word caregiver, it's either, oh, you're caring for someone who is elderly, or you're a professional caregiver. They do not think anything about the veterans who have loved ones who are their caregivers.
Active duty military, are you locked and loaded on your civilian life career plans? Military spouses, have you found a career that travels with you? Veterans, are you on a path of passion and purpose? The secret to your career success and happiness is all about fit. Learn how to customize your career to your powerfully unique talent, passion, purpose, and values. Control your own destiny by launching your own business. Order these books now on Amazon or visit veteransplaybook.com.
You come here, you join the Dole Foundation, you get that recognition, that support, you get that empowerment, and then you get that almost dual paycheck now. You're getting a passion and purpose paycheck, and you're getting a W-2 payroll paycheck, right?
Exactly. It's so needed. We're not all spouses. There's moms and dads, and children, adult children are taking care of our veterans. There was a period of time that I kind of was floundering and went, from losing that identity as a police officer, shifting to what is my identity now? Oh, I'm an advocate. I come to you as someone that has experienced a loved one of mine, my spouse, who served 23 years in the Army and came home not the same. And 2 years ago, attempted to take his own life. I can be seen and heard not only for those experiences that we are going through as a family of a wounded veteran, yet I can be the voice for others who may not have found it yet.
Yes. Was there a moment when you're here, you've come to DC, where you feel that there's this calling, this advocacy?
That really came together all in 2017, when there was good happening and bad, right? Things were happening with my husband and his own mental health. But getting involved with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and seeing all these other caregivers and what they're going through, similar but different. In my hometown of Kansas City, Missouri, we were not seen. So when I was searching for help for myself and then to best help my husband, I couldn't find it in Kansas City. I had to look outside of our area, which then ended up being things that were online or in different states. And when you're a caregiver, that may not be conducive to being able to access those services. I thought, well, if I am needing help, there's got to be others.
Yes, yes.
So I started a support group.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that I ever did. It was through a national organization, but that national organization only supported post 9/11 veterans and caregivers. My thought was, gosh, what about our Vietnam era folks,
Yes, yes.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
They've been caring for so much longer than many of us have, and they have words of wisdom that they could teach us. And then heard this little voice saying, you should start a nonprofit. I went out, my husband was still asleep, and I'm like, honey, can we start a nonprofit? And of course he's like, I'm sleeping, yes, do whatever you want. And that was the start of it. Many of the organizations needed the veteran to sign up first before the family could get help.
Yes.
Most of the time, the family is stepping up and going, excuse me, I need some help.
Yes.
We eliminated that barrier. There were some great organizations doing some great things in retreats for caregivers. But at the same time, when I come home with, a great massage or my nails are done, that doesn't sustain my caregiving journey. And maybe I don't have the money to go get another massage, but I need something that sustains my journey of caregiving, because military and veteran caregivers are so much younger than our civilian counterparts and are going to be doing this for so much longer. We need to make sure they are sustaining their journey of caregiving, which means their own mental health and wellness.
Yes.
My name is Shawn Moore, and I am the Executive Director and founder of Caregivers on the Home Front. And we are here at Unity Village for a caregiver mental health and wellness restorative weekend. We have brought 12 caregivers in for a weekend to focus on solely themselves. I am a veteran caregiver as well. I live this journey every day, and I know how important it is for other caregivers to be in community with each other.
So that's right out of the entrepreneur's playbook.
Pretty much. What's the gap?
You had absolutely. And you had a problem. You sectored out different customer groups. You looked at different solutions. You narrowed it. You tested it. But you got to get to action.
Have to get to action.
Many entrepreneurs learn things the hard way. Increase your chances for business success. Len Green has over 40 years of experience advising thousands of winning entrepreneurs. He shares their inside secrets and proven strategies so you can learn it all before you launch your business. Based on his popular course at Babson College, the book reveals 18 down-to-earth principles and proven business tactics. Read the book and get online feedback from Len. Order today on Amazon or visit veteransplaybook.com.
We're back with Veterans Playbook and the Dole Foundation. And Steve, could you share with us the journey of the Dole Foundation? How was that founding moment and how it's evolved?
The foundation started with a mission inspired by a very personal, profound experience by Elizabeth Dole, a 45-plus year public servant, secretary, senator, CEO of the American Red Cross, caring for her veteran hero husband, Senator Bob Dole. And she met hundreds of young families who, because of this new generation of war and this new generation of veteran recovery, were experiencing lifelong wounds, injuries, and illnesses. And this was a new phenomenon. Veterans from prior war eras had died from the injuries that veterans today come home with. She saw a real big systemic gap in the way that we were supporting veterans and their families.
Ladies and gentlemen, when the Elizabeth Dole Foundation was established in 2012, we embarked on a mission to better support our nation's military and veteran caregivers, as you know. It was a mission that included commissioning evidence-based research to identify caregivers' greatest challenges.
This wasn't a small issue. In fact, 5.5 million families recovering across the country. We know that many more families are suffering from acute conditions that are short and long term. Since then, we've been working on services and support and awareness in every corner of America. And we need to grow to be able to sustain the mission and to be able to satisfy the growing numbers of people who need our support. The doctors, the nurses, and the social workers who provide day in and day out care at the VA, most veterans love what they get. But they only get so much. Covering veterans solely depend on family members and caregivers in the home, neighbors, friends, kids, to be that support for them when they get home. So what we've had to do is build a community of care around the veteran. We have doctors across the VA who tell us that they couldn't adequately support veterans if it weren't for the community of care that we're building around veterans. I met a young man named Chris Rotenberry, who is 19 years old, and he spent the formative years of his life, from as early as the age of 6, he was providing day in and day out care for his father, who sustained life-altering traumatic brain injury and PTSD as a result of his service.
Right.
So Chris is among millions of other kids across the country who, instead of being kids, are being caregivers. I'll tell you the story of another family who recently told me her oldest son came to her and said, "Mom, I'd like to have a sleepover for my birthday." Now, he had never had a sleepover before. And as the oldest child, he essentially has become the caregiver to his 3 younger siblings, in addition to becoming his mom's helper for his dad. But it was his 16th birthday, so Mom said, "Okay, let's have a sleepover." And she watched him, when his friends came in, line up all the shoes along the wall so that Dad's wheelchair could get down the hallway. And he said to the kids, "We can't be too loud because we can't disturb Dad." And his mother came to me in tears. He was more concerned about making sure that he didn't disturb the care environment that was necessary for his father. And if we weren't on the front lines providing these kids and his mother the support that they need, you imagine what these families would be going through day in and day out?
I'm so glad to be back on the stage with you, Savannah. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all.
There's a big celebration of the caregivers, and it's Heroes and History Makers.
That's right. So we're in our 7th year. Tom Hanks is our national chairman.
Please remember, tonight is not only a celebration, it is a call to action. Military caregivers and their kids, just like the ones who opened our show, serve our nation by the millions, and together they uphold our end of Abraham Lincoln's pledge to care for those who bear America's greatest battles.
We call our public-facing campaign Hidden Heroes.
Yes.
They're the 5.5 million siblings and spouses and friends and other loved ones who provide this day in and day out care. And we recognize that, rightly, America celebrates its veterans. We celebrate their duty and their sacrifice. But we needed to also celebrate the hidden heroes, the parents and the siblings and friends and other loved ones and their kids.
Every year, the foundation selects caregivers from across the country to serve as Dole Caregiver Fellows. And our fellows are advocates and resources and support in their home communities. They have testified from Congress. They've participated on VA advisory councils, and they've shared their stories with the public, and they've done so much more. And they are the heart and soul of this foundation. Could all of the fellows, all of the caregivers here tonight, just stand up so we can all thank you for your support.
And so this celebration will bring Tom Hanks and Savannah Guthrie. We're giving an award to actor Adam Driver, who himself is a veteran and has become a really big, passionate advocate for caregivers and hidden helpers.
Yes.
Thank you very much to Elizabeth Dole for this organization. Yeah, no means it. Thank you to the military. Thank you. And their caregivers. I know that relationship is a complex and humbling one, not just from my own personal experience, but I saw it with my grandmother who supported my grandfather who retired Navy, my cousin who joined the Navy, my sister who had 2 kids and put herself through college while her husband did 9 tours to Iraq and Afghanistan. I know that when one person joins the military, their loved ones do too, in a sense. And if their wounds are invisible, it can be as equally as challenging.
And there's that famous quote from President Lincoln that says, "We commit to supporting those who have borne the battle. But Lincoln didn't also talk about their spouse and their caregiver and their children. And today, covering veterans solely depend on family members and caregivers in the home, neighbors, friends, kids, to be that support for them when they get home. So what we've had to do is build a community of care around the veteran. We have doctors across the VA who tell us that they couldn't adequately support veterans if it weren't for the community of care that we're building around veterans, where we're teaching doctors, nurses, and social workers how to integrate family members. And so we're going to recognize the service and sacrifice these folks make and raise some support for them as well.
Wow.
And the growth of this caregiver movement, from the quiet hallways of Walter Reed to this grand hall tonight, is what gives me hope that our country will one day provide every hidden hero the support they need.
I hope you are inspired by this amazing veteran venture story. Whether you're an active duty veteran or military family member, starting your own business is a great dream. We hope you're inspired to act now, pursue this passion and purpose, and by doing so, move our world to a better place. We are Veterans Playbook. Until next week, I'm Mike Caslin.